Everyone, welcome to the Movieception Show. My name is Fariba, and tonight we're about to watch the third episode of The Acolyte. Now, as you have probably seen my reaction from last week, I'm currently leaning towards liking this show. There's certainly some areas that I do like, such as some of the characters that we've met, the tone of it. But I also think that there are areas where I hope that it will at least improve. Like, it hasn't really sold on me yet, which is particularly the execution and storytelling. I think the pacing is kind of, it's definitely on the slow side. I hope that will be something that it will pick up moving forward. So yeah, I think right now, as at this point, it's just hoping that the show will continue to get better as we get to more of the episodes. I mean, of course, there have been cases with Star Wars where there have been shows where I wasn't really happy with by the end of it. So like Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Book of Boba Fett, as particular examples of Star Wars shows that really did disappoint me. So I'm hoping that this will be definitely a case where it will be a good Star Wars show. And again, we'll see in tonight's episode if it actually starts to improve in terms of stuff like pacing, storytelling, how it'll start to build up some of the characters and dynamic of it. So those are some of the things I'll be looking forward to as we watch this episode tonight. And before I even get down into that, I am very much aware of the review bombings going on. I've been reading about it. It's all over. I feel like everyone's talking about this. And here's what I will say very briefly about those reviews. As long as there is constructive criticism in terms of what people are saying in terms of the quality of the show, I think those are valid. So are you talking about things like storytelling, the execution, pacing, characters, the chemistry? Those are the things that I would say are valid points regardless. I mean, people will be favoring a show or a movie, and there's others who just do not have the same flavor for it. But then, of course, there are some reviews that tend to not even be focused on the quality, but seems to have an agenda for it. Of course, when I mean by agenda, like so-called woke culture, and those kinds of things, I would say are very pathetic ways to kind of tear down anything that is a movie or a show or any of that kind. I think that the fact that there is this perception that there's only one kind of character that should always be the lead is absolutely absurd. The fact is that there are so many great stories that are rich with people, rich with characters, and it shouldn't be that we have to be very constricted to just one kind of perspective. So that's my take on it. It's very unfortunate that we are once again dealing with these kinds of phenomena when it comes to fandom. But also it's very inevitable. I mean, I was not too surprised that the Acolyte was going to face this kind of backlash going into the series premiere. So, but yeah, I want to address that again. If you have constructive criticism, that's totally valid. I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you don't like Acolyte, that's totally fine. Like, it's because of the pacing or story, you're just not connecting with it. That's totally fine. If you're just gonna bash it because of the fact that it has a female lead or the characters are too diverse or whatnot, then that's just a stupid way to give a comment about. Like, that's not valid. So yeah, without further ado, like, having just mentioned that, without further ado, let's get right down into the third episode of Acolyte. She is one with the Force.
Me? How did you know I was here? When I can't find you?
Oh, okay.
Let it go, May. Stop!
Bro.
Why do you have to do things like that?
Wow, she's always had dark thoughts.
There will be consequences for breaking the rules.
It isn't fair. I'm old enough to go outside the fortress walls.
The rules are for your safety. Now, come with me. Quickly.
Is that a Jedi? Yes.
After the Ascension ceremony. Let them have some spice creams.
Mama!
My sweet girls must have sweet treats.
Did anyone see them?
I do not believe so.
Any sign of the visiting Jedi?
None. Our scouts think they've moved their ship inland.
I told you this planet would be safe haven for our coven.
A firm hand is required.
OSHA is testing our boundaries. It's normal behavior for a child.
Twins are not normal children.
I wonder what that's implying.
The power of one. Your enemies will not warn you before they attack. Get up. Block me.
It's the
Girls,
Jedi,
to your room.
I'm assuming.
I don't want to do the ascension. But that's how we become witches.
Ah, witches. Twitches. Who remembers that Disney Channel movie? It reminds me of
This
Twitches.
is your sister. The thread tied.
Stop! Don't look. It isn't fair. I share everything with you, and you hide things from me or run off alone. I want to have my own things. Why? Because I want to do everything together all the time? But why? Because we're not the same. Of course we are. No, it feels that way because we're the only children here.
Oh my god. It sounds like some of the more, like the Hindu verses that they're making right now.
Persecuted. Forced into hiding. All because some would consider our power dark. Unnatural. We were on the brink of extinction. And then we were blessed with the gift of life.
Oh, okay.
You vow upon my death to protect the secrets of our coven and continue our legacy.
I do. Mama! The Jedi!
They've sliced the platform. They will be here any moment.
Hide them.
We might get some dark revelations.
Put down your weapons. No violence.
Oh my god, that kid is from Game of Thrones.
Good evening. I am.
Oh, he's a
Master
Padawan
and
too.
these are my colleagues. Sol, Kelna thought this planet was uninhabited.
The all-knowing Jedi were ignorant of their surroundings. I find that hard to believe.
Remain you and your coven know that you are training children. The Republic law states
Randolph is not a part of the Republic.
there are no children here.
What is your name?
Osha.
Osha. My name is Sol.
Osha.
Oh my
You
god.
meet your sister. Where is their father?
They have no father.
Jedi do not take children.
Hold your tongue or I cut it out for you.
I think you would make a very good Jedi, Osha. Would you like to be tested and see if you could become one?
Yes. Please. Mother? Mama, I want to show them what you taught me. Please let me take the test.
Mother Anastasia, you cannot deny that Jedi have the right to test potential Padawans. With your permission, of course.
Oh my god.
The scouts will bring Osha to your camp at midday.
Both girls. Her sister, too.
While the moons are high.
Mother Coral, I urge you to remain calm.
One drop of Jedi blood, and the Republic would destroy us.
There are only
That's
4
true.
Jedi. Who would miss them? Osha is a child.
She is old enough to know what she wants.
I did not bring the girls into this world so we could lose them to a bunch of deranged monks.
It is not your decision. It is mine. And I've made it.
I carried them. I created them. And what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them?
This test has 2 out.
Will we know how to fail?
I don't know what they will ask you. But whatever's in your heart, you must say the opposite.
If we pass, they take us away. We never see Mama again. I will stop them. No one's taking me. The Jedi are bad. The Jedi are good.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
You have to lie.
Nay! You will go first!
Promise me. Fine. I promise. Hi. Ow. What are you doing?
She's taking a blood sample.
In this test, you must divine what
Blood
images appear
sample.
on the test
We know
screen.
what he's doing. Midichlorian.
Tell us what you see.
Correct.
That wasn't a
Did someone tell you to fail this test?
Your family doesn't want to be separated from you.
What do you want, Osha? But then you are. When the Jedi tested me, I was only 4.
Really?
Yes. But I knew I was different from my family. The Jedi saw how special I was. And I conceded you, Osha. I found out there were many other children like me.
There are other children there?
Thousands like us.
I want to be a Jedi.
Then you must have the courage to tell the truth.
She pissed. She knew right from the start.
I told him I wanted to be a Jedi because I do.
You don't mean that.
I do. I want my own life. I don't want to share it with May. I want to see the galaxy. I don't want to be a witch. What's wrong with you?
Go and take a walk, May. Take a walk with Mother Coral. Now!
Mama! What's wrong with you? Mama! Mama! Jedi, Mama. I do. I won't let you leave. You can't go. We're stuck here now. It's not up to you. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. How? I'll kill you.
Oh, she is a bitch. Oh, fucking hell. I don't like her. Oh, she's selfish and a bitch. mm. Oh. Oh. She sucks ass. She totally sucks ass. So May wanted to kill Osha, I see. Okay. Murder. Like, what?
Oh no.
Bro, why would you trust her? After what she tried to do.
Mama's dead. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? Osha!
I got you. Let's keep going. They started a fire. It destroyed everything. It killed.
May? May? No. No. You have to go back. We have to go back.
Oh my God.
We must.
Oh my god.
There is nothing back there.
Man. So exactly like Qui-Gon.
You're going to be okay, Osha. You will never feel like this again.
Osha.
What is she screaming Osha about? She tried to kill her. The fuck? So that was the third episode of Acolyte right there. And it's basically a flashback. So giving us the origin story of May and Osha, what led them to separate, and giving us a bit more of the context of what happened in that moment back in Brendok. And so it's nice that we do get these kind of stories where we invest a little bit of that origin story. Like, that's totally fine by me. And from the looks of it, it does seem as though they're gonna show two separate perspectives on this. That's what I'm getting the sense of, because we're seeing one perspective from Osha, how she's feeling. I mean, I feel like this episode was definitely focused on Osha's perspective and how she viewed the whole situation that happened in Brendok, whereas it seems as though we're also probably gonna be seeing a different side to the story of what happened, because it does seem as though that there is something that is being held hidden. From the looks of it all, like I think there is a little bit of deceit coming from, Indara, Sol, Talbert, all of them, right? So I feel like we're gonna have that sort of story right there. But yeah, I mean, it's really tough to kind of give my impression of what this means in terms of the story, just because, again, it is a flashback sequence. I mean, it's not a flashback sequence, but it's a whole, like, story of, like, going back to the origins of it, like, 16 years ago. So it's like, yes, we get that context, but it doesn't develop with what's going on in the present day of this story. So again, I can't really give my full impression of how I feel about this series so far, but I will say that having seen this episode, like, it definitely gives me a bit better of a context of who Osha is, who May is, what their personalities are like, what their choices are like. This is definitely a case where we definitely need to get child psychologists involved, and how they're so different. Osha is someone who's very adventurous, is someone who doesn't want to be held in one place, and this also means having to be a bit more personal and private about her things, whereas May is someone who is super reliant on her sister, who can't really isn't really adaptable, not so adventurous whatsoever, and is very obedient when trying to stick around with like her whole coven. It definitely has a bit more of a darker thought. So we do see the contrast of it. Like, even though they are twins, you can definitely tell how they're super different from each other, how they have different thoughts. So lots of psychology right there. But yeah, let's be honest. May is a bitch, of course. You can just get the sense of it right here in this episode. Like, she is someone who only thinks about herself, doesn't want, just because people have their own, ideas and options and what they want to do with their life. She doesn't like the fact that, that there are people that she loves will like to move on and do things of their own that isn't within her own limits. So, and it's something that is, hard for her to accept. And we see what happens here. And again, we don't know what happened in between the moment where the test had taken place to when the deaths and the fire happened at the coven. So there's definitely this reality of, okay, well, we've seen the perspective of Osha, but maybe May saw something else that, even though Osha is under this impression that what happened at the coven was just simply due to a fire caused by May probably has seen something totally different. Like, we don't know what happened in between those moments. And I think from what I recall from the trailers, there are some things that must have happened, because there is some of the scenes where we see Andara and the other 3 Jedis pulling out their lightsabers right outside of the coven. So there must have been something that happened in between those moments, and we don't have that context. So there does seem to be this idea that, okay, some the Jedi also might be responsible for what happened with the event. It's not simply just a test, but they also could have been involved with some of the deaths from the looks of it. I mean, that's even the case where what happened last week's episode 2, where Talbot decided that, he wanted to, unalive himself, right? By taking the poison. So, there's, like, we're starting to see a connection of what things are happening and what a deception is, and what the full story is in terms of what really happened at Brundock. And so it is nice that we do get the story of what really happened, or at least giving us a bit more of that context. But then again, like, it's like we are kind of keeping a pause on the main story and trying to go reverse back a little bit. So it does get a little, I want to say frustrating, but it is just like, okay, well, I don't mind this, but it would have been great that we could have just moved forward with the story. Maybe it could have, maybe this would have been one of those cases where it would have been better just to kind of do back and forth or something. But we'll see how it goes, right? Like, it seems so that there's going to be a much fuller story that needs to be told about this moment. This moment seems to be basically the catalyst of things that happened everywhere in this story. And now it's a matter of, okay, how things are going to move forward. So yeah, I think it's not a bad episode just because of how it serves its purpose. Just, again, it gives us a bit more of that context. I think just watching this episode, like, again, it's not bad. I think that it does give us, again, it gives a little more of a context, understanding who these characters are and seeing the difference between May and Osha, and the contrast of them and how they try to, again, adapt to things. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the greatest episode I've seen so far. Again, I mean, I will say that it is a good episode. It's not too bad. But I just wish that we can go back to the main timeline, because, again, like, that's the main thing that we should be focusing on. And it's like, okay, this whole episode just focused on an origin story that now it's like, okay, Now, like, again, I'm gonna hope that maybe if when we do get the context of what happened in between with, May's perspective, that it won't take a full episode. I hope that's the case. But having a feeling that might be his whole episode right there. So that's my concern right now, really, is that how they're going to tackle the next episode. Because is it going to be another episode that's going to be focused on this moment right here where we now see the second perspective, and are they going to dedicate a whole episode to it, or are we going to go back to the timeline that we are currently on the show, and then eventually we'll start to kind of unravel what happened through May's perspective, so that way it carries the story rather than just having to be stuck and going back into the past and being stuck there for like 2 full episodes. So that's just my concern right now going into the next episode. Not that this is not a bad episode or anything like that. I mean, again, this is a pretty good episode for what it serves, and again, giving us that context. And I think, again, just watching this, I will say this, it is a bit dark. This is a pretty dark episode, and I think that it's great to see Star Wars taking a bit more of that risk, especially showcasing a bit more of the darkness of things. Again, it's not as if we haven't already seen this before. I mean, let's Anakin Skywalker, of course. But I think it's just like, okay, but I think it's just in terms of the story and just the execution of the story, it's like I would like to move forward. So, and it's just, it does get a bit, it's like, okay, I see why you wanted to dedicate a whole episode to it, but also it's like I want the story to move forward as well. So, but I'm gonna hope that, having showcased this episode where we do go to that origin story, that backstory, that, it eventually will serve its purpose, that, this will at least pay off going into like maybe the latter half of the season. So again, I'm just a bit concerned right now in terms of like the pacing and just how it's executing the story and just the direction of it. But I'll still be optimistic and open-minded about what's going to happen moving forward. Again, I really just hope that the 4th episode that we do get, it's not just going to continue off with this backstory. Like, I would love this story to actually just, continue, and, it doesn't, and hopefully it doesn't impact the pacing itself. I think that's one of the biggest issues I've seen with Star Wars, that pacing seems to be a big issue with these shows, that, we have some really good beginnings and we have some pretty decent endings, but the middle stuff, it's like they can't really seem to figure out the formula and the ingredients of it, like trying to mix it in very well. And I feel like that has been a big problem. So I just hope that this is worth not exploring, but worth what we had to see in terms of building up the main timeline that we have in this show. And so again, that's just my biggest concern right there. Again, I think it's not a bad episode. I think, again, the kids who play May and Osha are very good. I mean, you can get the sense of the anger and the innocence and just exuding the personalities of May and Osha that we've seen in the present day. So like we get that sort of that parallelism, that comparison. It's like, okay, we see why they've always been like this. And again, the witch thing. Very interesting thing to add into the Star Wars lore. Because again, I'm not too deep into the Star Wars lore to know everything of all the aspects and entities and the supernatural of it all. Because again, that I'm not too deep into like the canon stuff and the legends. But I mean, it's very interesting to hear about the witches stuff. Like, how is this different from like just the Force? Like, are they exuding like a type of force that makes them witches, or is this similar to being a Jedi, or is there like, I mean, I have questions about that as well. Like, now you're introducing this new kind of lore right here. I mean, clearly we can see that these witches don't like Jedi, and again, like there's a reason why they decided to exile themselves. Like, I mean, I wish there could have been a bit more context with that as well. And you can also see where, things are a bit hypocritical. Like, I get the sense of hypocritical idea to it, because the Jedi are like, oh, you happen to have 2 kids, and it's like, it's like they're trying to accuse them of something. It's just like, but the Jedi have, like, the Jedi Order themselves have taken kids themselves and trained them to become Jedi, Jedi themselves, and almost in a sense become, I don't want to say child soldiers, because again, they don't actually go into combat as children, but they become trained since the day that they've been children. So it's like you get the sense of the hypocrisy and Again, the question of free will versus determinism, and again, a lot of psychology involved in this, and seeing how, we get to see a little bit of the Jedi where, they're not always the hero, they're not always a good guy. Like, we can even see from these characters how they perceive the Jedi and what they think of them. So, again, it definitely giving us a little bit of the vibe of like what happened with Anakin and Palpatine and all that sort of stuff. And that probably is going to build up into what eventually would lead up to like the Sith Lords and them eventually become a rising, and then, getting the concept of the dark force and all that sort of stuff. So I'm assuming that's gonna somehow build up to that. Again, I just hope that going into those future episodes that hopefully the execution will pay off, and that maybe hopefully the pacing won't be too impacted, even with cases like these episodes. Again, this episode's it's not technically a filler because it actually serves a purpose, but I just hope that it does pay off at the end. So that's all I have to say about the third episode right here. Again, I think it's not a really bad episode. I think it does give us a bit more of the context and the background, and it allows me to kind of sense that, okay, there must be more to the story than what's being told from Sol, what's being told from Indara, what's being told from Osha, or how May or Osha are perceiving this, right? So, but yeah, that's all I have to say about the third episode right here. What are your thoughts having seen this story, seeing this episode? Like, are you okay with the fact that this episode actually dedicated a bit more time in showcasing that backstory rather than doing some of the more, some of the more formulaic ways of just going back and forth? Is this something that you feel like serves its purpose, or you feel like you would have wanted to just continue off with the story with the present timeline? What are your thoughts going into the fourth episode? Are you okay with the fact that whether or not they do continue the backstory or they're gonna go back to the timeline? Like, what are your thoughts about going into the fourth episode? Like, what are your thoughts about that? And then, of course, in terms of the direction, execution of the show so far, what are your opinions about it so far? What do you think about it? And whether or not that's something that you yourself are concerned about. Let me know your thoughts below, and make sure to like and subscribe.